The new expansions for the Year of the Dragon have been teased, and I think I have some pretty good ideas on what they might be.
Hey, buddy, watch this.
That's right. As you can see behind me, 3 new expansions for 2019. The Year of the Dragon have been teased. We got this purple one, a blue one, sort of a yellow-orange one. And you probably don't have any idea what these mean. And to be honest, I don't either. I know some things, but I don't know everything. So I have some theories based on a little bit of Warcraft lore knowledge, some insights from you guys on my Twitch stream and elsewhere that could help me track down and provide some ideas, and I think even some really, really good ideas for what each of these expansion themes is going to be. So that said, let's just dive into this. So let's take a closer look at the teaser here for expansion number 1. Big purple gem, lots of gold and white bordering and inlays here, and some rune work. Both a big rune at the bottom, but also what appears to be some runes sort of carved into the gem with, white bright light emanating out of them. And when I look at this, I see one thing very clearly, and a lot of people have identified this. I'm not like throwing out any crazy ideas here, but it looks exactly to me like Dalaran. Now, if you don't know what Dalaran is, this is a city in World of Warcraft. It's this big magical floating city. It's been a centerpiece hub for a couple different expansions now. Lots of mages live there. And it should be pretty obvious that it matches up perfectly with this teaser image, right? All kinds of gold gems with emanating light, white buildings, right, that match the background of this. There's rune work everywhere. Maybe you can't see a lot of it in the screenshot from World of Warcraft, but it's just a magical city, so runes certainly make sense. So to me, this looks exactly like Dalaran, right? And in fact, that's not the only clue that we have that points towards Dalaran for this first expansion. Blizzard also released this, which is a teaser for their upcoming solo adventure content. And you'll see a lot of different things here on the right, like different previews of screenshots from the adventure mode or rewards from the adventure mode. And there are a couple very interesting elements. And I want to start at the upper right-hand corner, that sort of green teal drawing you'll see in the upper right, which I'm going to blow up here so you can see it a little more closely. This is very clearly a sewer. You can see the main pipe of the sewer, the arches. You can see in the background some water coming out of a sewer pipe. You can even see what looks like maybe a bottle floating down the primary part of the sewer there. So if you go to your World of Warcraft knowledge banks, there are a couple places that look somewhat similar to this. You can think about like Undercity, for instance. There's some underground things in Stormwind, like the tram connecting Stormwind and Ironforge, for instance. But what this really, really looks like to me are the sewers of Dalaran, the underbelly of Dalaran. There's this big floating city, and underneath it are a sewer where there are a couple different things going on, often PvP fighting and Legion expansion. People will just always be brawling down there. And if you look closely at the screenshot I provided, it's basically exactly the same. These big arches, water flowing down. It's just very clearly a representation of the underbelly to me. Now, again, it's not the only sewer kind of thing that exists in World of Warcraft, but given the visual and the graphics and the color palette and this teaser image, it seems pretty clear to me that it's Dalaran based. Now, that said, we have some other hints here as well, or at least other sort of graphics or visuals. You'll see 2 card backs and a card pack. Now, the card packs have the same kind of color palette. The one on the left for the card back is a little bit more kind of a red, burgundy, pink, as opposed to sort of the true purple I associate with Dalaran, but it's still close enough. And then that one card back looks like one for one with the preview image. If you look closely, it looks like they even maybe borrowed some distinct elements. And then we also have a really purple card pack here. Now, I do have to note that the card pack, to me, it doesn't look kind of as majestic or, clean and magical as I expect a Dalaran card pack to look like. You'd think it would have that same sort of white paneling and it would look really magical and pristine. It looks kind of darker and rough, and it's got like a scar in it. So that's a little weird. Maybe you could see things like that scar representing like Violet Hold, which is a part of Dalaran. It's this big prison where they keep all kinds of crazy evil monsters and stuff. And maybe that's like the prison or a crack in the prison or something like that. I did find a few other things in World of Warcraft I thought were worth mentioning that have this same sort of color palette or sort of reflect these three things in particular. The Kirin Tor are the group of mages that are in Dalaran, and certainly the purple banner you see here on your left looks very similar, but that's because it's still kind of Dalaran themed. But maybe it's not Dalaran specifically. Maybe it's more of a Kirin Tor mage expansion, and I don't mean just the singular Hearthstone card that already exists, but like a bigger, maybe Arcane Magic or Kirin Tor, maybe even like a Malagos themed expansion, who knows, but something specifically to do with magic or arcane magic. Another thing you're seeing there is a Draenei Paladin, and often Draenei Paladins have this same sort of purple gems and white backgrounds and gold bordering. You can see that armor looks exactly like the card back above it. So to me, that left card back looks more Kirin Tor. The middle card back looks a lot like a Draenei Paladin. And so maybe it's like a Draenei themed expansion. It might not be Dalaran at all. Maybe it's Draenei. And then finally, the third card pack, somebody brought this up in my Twitch chat. It does have a bit of a void look to it, like a darker, more menacing kind of purple. So I thought about something like Void Elves, for instance. You'll see a Void Elf there on the right. It's got gold. It's got that dark purple. So maybe there's some sort of Void Elf element happening here. It could be all three. Now, I still think because of that sewer graphic that we have here, that pretty clearly this has got to have something to do with Dalaran. That's a pretty prominent clue. They didn't do that by accident. That just reeks of Dalaran to me. And Dalaran's like a really nice, recognizable Warcraft thing. So I do think it's a pretty good fit for Hearthstone as well. So for me, I think my best guess is absolutely this one, that it will be something to do with Dalaran. I don't know exactly what. You can't just call it the Dalaran expansion. So I don't know. There's got to be some other connecting element, perhaps, because I don't know if Dalaran itself is enough to kind of carry the weight or theme of an expansion. But I think 99% chance... well, maybe 80% chance to be fair. I think Dalaran's a really, really good guess, and my best guess for the first expansion. So that said, let's move on to expansion number 2. And for this one, you'll see the preview here. It's got this kind of teal blue. It again uses gold. You'll also see the border near the bottom of this panel, very angular, stone-like, with some teal blue gems inlaid. It also has some runes and what appear to be hieroglyphics carved into the edge of that border. You'll see a few there along it, and a kind of a tan background. And when I see this, to me, it absolutely screams only one thing, which is Uldum, which is another zone in World of Warcraft, this time from the Cataclysm expansion. And it's all about this Egyptian visualization. Everything about it feels exactly like Egypt. It has pyramids and it has Egypt-looking enemies. And between the hieroglyphs, between that tan background, and as you'll see soon, with the teal color as well, it just feels like Uldum. Now, there are a couple other places, theoretically, in World of Warcraft that could have similar Egyptian motifs. There are a few. But to me, Uldum makes the most sense. Now, if you take a close look here, for instance, once again, the teaser, but in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see some concept art for Uldum, and you'll note that kind of teal color coming back into play. And not only that, but if you look closely at those pipes in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see runes on those pipes that match up pretty much perfectly to the runes in that teal stripe moving down the middle of the preview teaser. And then if you look even more closely, you'll see this beetle that's inlaid on the wall in Uldum, and these are actually in the game as well. And even the shape of that beetle's legs, how they kind of like go down and they kind of hook around and point straight down and then hook around and kind of curve up at the top. That almost looks exactly like the border around this gem. You know, you have to use a little bit of your imagination, but certainly the shape and the profile of these are exactly the same. The color palette's a little bit off, like the concept art here at least is a little more of a green teal. The teaser's a little bit more of a blue teal, but I think if you look at the actual expansion itself, and here, for instance, we have a screenshot from the Halls of Origination, which are in Uldum. You'll see that that teal really does have a bit more of a blue hue, and in fact, I think matches up pretty nicely to the teaser. That's the concept art, not the actual in-game art. So, could be Uldum, maybe could actually just be a Halls of Origination expansion, which is this Titan facility, essentially. I'm not going to try to capture all the lore, and I'll probably mess it up if I do. But Titans are something we haven't really touched on much in Hearthstone yet, although I did do them in a custom card review that has yet to be published. They are a big part of how the Warcraft universe is formed. They're sort of the gods of Warcraft in a lot of ways, so that would be a really big kind of thing. We have seen some kind of Egyptian-themed things in the past, with Hearthstone, with like League of Explorers, for instance. A lot of the stuff they were looking at felt like this, ancient archaeology style. So it might be harkening back a little bit to League of Explorers. Things like, Brand Bronzebeard, Reno Jackson maybe. But, an Uldum-centered League of Explorers, perhaps starring desert vibe expansion, is probably due in Hearthstone, and this is a cool part of the lore that we haven't touched on yet. So when I look at this, I just absolutely 100% see Uldum, no doubt about it. It looks clear as day to me. I don't have anything else that matches up better. There's been a lot of other theories. I don't really want to present all of them. I just want to present mine. So I'm locked in on Uldum as my prediction. I think it's a perfect fit. And then finally here for expansion number 3, I think this one's a little bit tougher because it's a tad more generic to me. Also, the third expansion teasers are always a little tough. Like, if you looked at the last one, it looked almost nothing like Rostakon's Rumble. Like, you never would have guessed that it was Rostakon's Rumble based on that artwork. So, who knows how closely this one's even going to represent the final expansion that we see. They're probably still finishing a lot of that, frankly. But you can see a few things. There's some kind of fire graphic coming through the top there in the background, almost like it's coming through some seams in wood, for instance. There's a tooth in the bottom of the frame. There's this sort of black bordering at the bottom as well with some kind of swirly stuff inlaid on it. And then the orange-yellow gem there in the middle has some fire emanating off the upper right-hand side, it looks like. Almost like it's breathing fire or glowing fire. So when I think of fire in Hearthstone, and I think about the Year of the Dragon specifically, one big thing comes to mind, which is Deathwing and specifically Cataclysm. And in fact, the last thing I just talked about was in Cataclysm 2. So this artwork here is Alexstrasza fighting Deathwing. And we've had some Deathwing cards in the past. We haven't had a Deathwing-centered event yet, but Deathwing brought a lot of fire to the world of Warcraft. And if I'm looking at fire, if I'm looking at that dragon tooth, even though it doesn't really look like Deathwing's tooth, I'm still thinking of Deathwing primarily. So that would also be a great cap off to the Year of the Dragon, right? A way to finish out a Year of the Dragon, celebrating one of the most recognizable, if not the most recognizable dragons in World of Warcraft, which is Deathwing. Now, I will say I don't think this is the only option. I think there's some other possibilities. For instance, a great one people brought up was perhaps the Iron Horde, or more specifically even Blackrock Foundry, maybe going to that Warlords of Draenor World of Warcraft expansion era where there was a lot of fire, things like Rend Blackhand and just big underground forges and stuff. I could see that too because of the fire. So that's one possibility. You can see how this artwork, for instance, captures a lot of the same elements of the teaser. I also thought about Grim Batal, a little known area for a lot of people, I guess, but still another one that involves a lot of fire, has some connections to dragons. And again, if you look at this screenshot from World of Warcraft, I see a lot of the same kind of imagery as well. That fire glowing in the bottom. Some of the darker metal bordering, right? So maybe that's a possibility. And then finally, maybe we go back to Blackrock Mountain. Like, it's been a while since we went to Blackrock Mountain. Blackrock Mountain's really big. I don't know that we explored all of it. So this is a shot from Blackrock Mountain, Blackrock Depths specifically. And I don't know. I think it's possible there's a lot still left there. Maybe however these stories connect, they end up in Blackrock Mountain. Maybe Ragnaros is there. Another thing I didn't mention here is the Firelands is a possibility. The sort of elemental plane of Ragnaros. I think that's probably too narrow for an expansion. And in fact, maybe all three of these are a little bit narrow for an expansion. But they're certainly the things that come to mind when I see that teaser. So I don't have a refined answer necessarily for this one beyond Deathwing and Cataclysm as the overarching central theme of expansion number 3. And there you go. Those are my 3 guesses. Something to do with Dalaran, Uldum, and Deathwing. So maybe we'll call the first one the Fight for Dalaran. We'll call the second one the Fall of Uldum. and we'll call the third one The Rise of Deathwing. Totally made up names, of course, but thematically and geographically, I think they do make sense based on what these teasers are showing. And frankly, they all sound like cool locations for Hearthstone expansion, so I'd be happy to see that. Now, of course, these are just my guesses. There are a lot of different interpretations. Some people see pandas when they look at expansion number 2. Some see the sea itself. And I want to hear what you guys see. What do you think each of these teasers are pointing towards? What expansions are you expecting to see? And which ones would you like to see, right? What do you want to see in Hearthstone? I want to hear all that in the comments below. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, game on.